Good morning. We're learning as Chus for Shalema, Filan Chaya Baserach. We're on Daf Kuf Dalid Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom. Boy Rebbe Loza, Param Hanisrafim Usiirim Hanisrafim. Shiyotzer Ruboy B'miyat Aver, Mal. We were talking about in the Mishnah the Param Hanisrafim, the Sirim Hanisrafim, the different Chatoyis Hapnimius, that they have a din that they are metama when you take them outside of the, at least according to the Tanakama, when you take them outside of the Azara, they're metama the one who's carried them, because it's as if he already started the Sreifa. What happened if most of the behema, most of the corpse that you shechted already was outside of the Azara, but one of the Ivarim that makes up that roiv, like let's say the whole, you took out 51% of the animal, but included in that 51% of the animal was 10% of the leg, and the leg is let's say 25% of the animal. So if you don't count the leg as being outside, then all of a sudden instead of having 51% outside, you have instead 26% outside if you don't count that leg, because that leg itself has been, the roiv of it is still inside. Mao. Do you say since a roiv of that aver is still inside, doesn't make a difference? I'm sorry, no. Since most of that aver is inside, so you treat the whole aver as if it's inside, and therefore you don't have a roiv of the animal outside, and therefore it's not matama the people carrying it. Well, since that aver was not outside, we go basa the roiv of the behema, the pashta thing. We don't care if each individual aver, which if roiv it is inside or is outside. You look at the animal as a whole, which is what really dictates whether it's metama. And since most of the behema, if you include that the miyat of this aver is outside, it's going to be metama. Pshita. It's the this Gemara says this is not a shayla. Of course, we don't care if one of the Evarim is roiv inside, as long as the roiv of the animal is outside. We're going to ignore the status of each individual Evar. Ella yotzo chetzia beroiv Evar. The question is a little different. We're talking about where the animal is exactly half in and half out, and you have you have one aver is roiv outside and a minority inside. Then the question is, so we tried to decide it's chatzi, but now this aver is going to determine. Now we're going to say hi miyut de aver bas roiv. Only do we say that since a roiv is outside, so we go bust that roiv, and we'll say roiv of the aver is outside, so we're going to treat it as if the whole aver is outside. Or do we leave it that the animal is everything is going to be considered chatzi, and it's not mostly outside, so therefore it's going to be treated as that there's no roiv outside, and it's not going to be metami yet. The Gemara says is a better question. That's a take. Rabbi Baravuna Masnila Begavri. He said this question not referring to a varim and the animal, but it's talking about the people carrying it. Misaskim by Chamisha Bnei Adam, there are 5 people who are carrying out the animal. V'nafku tlasu pashlu trei, and 3 people went outside. Already, 3 people are carrying it from outside, and 2 people are holding it from inside. My basa roiv mes asken mazlinan, ay basa behei mazlinan. Whether when we're trying to decide whether these people, the 2 are still inside, can we say that since there are 5 people and roiv of them are already outside, then the 2 that are inside are also gonna be. We're talking about where the right. So we look at since the animal is outside and roiv of the people carrying it are outside, we're going to say those who carried it out are also going to become tamei. Oi, basa behema aslinen. I'm sorry. Yeah. Or you say, all right. Or do we go where the animal is? Do we go basa? Hold on. Where is it? Three of them left. Do we go basa those carrying it? Or do we go basa the basa? Well, how? No, so it doesn't mean we go bust the animal and therefore they'll be, because then that would also the animal is outside. It means we don't care about the fact that roiv of them are outside. It depends on where they are in relation to the Beis Hamikdash. So if you're still inside, it doesn't make a difference where the behema is or where the other people are. Since you're not with the behema, since you're not where the behem is, those two that are inside are still going to remain tar. So Gemara teku. This again is a question. Boy Rebbe Loza, parim usirim hanisrafim. We have these same parim that we've been talking about. Yatsu v'chazru, that they went outside and then they came back inside. They took the behema out. We're going according to the Chachamim in the Mishnah that say that as soon as you take it out, it's metama those carrying it. They took it outside and then they brought it inside. Mao. Mi amrin kivan nafki lahu itamal. Who do we say since it went outside, they already became tame, and now there's no backsies on it. We don't say that since they returned, it's they become tar again. I don't kivan the harder. Or do we say since they did return, we treat it as it's as if they never took it out, and therefore, even though they would have been, had they continued, they would have been tamei. That since they went back, they're going to be tar. And the idea behind this is that although we're saying that as soon as you leave, as soon as you bring the parim and asrafim, simim and asrafim out of the Beis Hamikdash, you become tamei. That's because taking it out is considered the beginning of the sreifa. But if they bring it back in, then that bringing out never got to the point of being treated as a potential sreifa. So we would say that that when it came back in, it turns out that their going out was never really going out. That's going to result in a sreifa. So once they're harder, they're not tamei. Amr Baba Mama. Baba Mama says, I'll bring you right. Toshma. If they were carrying the behema on litter, on poles, if the first ones went out and the last ones did not go out, the ones who went out, they become tamei, but the ones on the inside are not metam begadim until they go out. If you're going to say, like we suggested, that as soon as there's a tumah, as soon as you go out, that is a tumah in itself. It's not dependent on the fact that later on it depends on the basar itself. As soon as the basar went out, that's matama, the people that are with it, that are carrying it. If you was to say, like we were suggesting, that it depends on, not that we would say you don't need a carry through on the actual burning, but as soon as the basar itself goes out, that's metama. What's inside is the way Rashi explains it. So then then it certainly would be the case that what the Mishnah suggested, that where they're carrying out on poles, that the ones on inside should be affected by the placement of the basar outside. As soon as the basar goes outside, that's considered it's burning. So what do we care if we only care about the basar? We don't care about the carriers. We don't treat it as that they're part of the cheshbon. Then the ones who are inside should also become tamei if that was the case. So the Gemara, Ravina says no. This is not this question about the way you're setting it up, that it depends on whether we go basa the basar, we go basa the people. That's incorrect, because there's a drush in the pasuk that tells us directly that in order for the people carrying it to become Tomei, they can't become Tomei while it's inside the base of Mikdash. There's nothing to do with these Svaras that was saying that it depends on how you look at the relationship of the Tumah of those that are becoming Tomei to the Basar. It's because the Torah says that the people who became Tameh, they have to be B'tayah themselves, and then afterwards they can go to the Machna. So the Torah tells you directly that in order for them to become Tameh, they must be outside of the Azara. So it's not because of a Svar, it's a Xeris HaKasav that tells us that they're not going to become Tameh from the Maitis, from being on the inside when the animal is outside. So don't derive any Svaras from that. So what was the question of Rebbe Lazar? Since we're saying that it's not dependent on this question that we had suggested, so the question is, we're talking about where the question is not like we had suggested, where people had carried out the basar of the Pirun Esraf and then brought it back in, and we're questioning whether the original people who brought it out will lose their tumah, will retroactively become tumah. Because, like we said, the pasuk says we can't. The pasuk tells us that once they go out, they have to come back in, and this is not. The Torah says exactly when you take it outside, that makes you tamei, and has nothing to do with the status of the basar, of whether the basar is starting its reif or not. So he says we're talking about a different question. We're talking about where they brought it out, and those people who brought it out are for sure tamei, and now they brought the basar back in to the azara, and now a different group of people are going and they're taking sticks and they're sticking the sticks into the azara and using it to pull out. So they themselves are outside, but the basar is still inside. But the basar had already gone outside. And the question is, does the fact that the basar had been outside before and the fact that they are now carrying it, they're bringing it toward the Beis HaSreifa, can we, since this basar had once been outside, we give it the status that they are moving basar that was already taken outside. It already had it already has that mila because they themselves are outside, and the basar is being bringing towards the mizbech, and the basar itself was once outside. Maybe that will be enough to make them tamei immediately, even before it reaches the azar. It reaches chutz la'azar. So that is the question. Okay, that's his iboya, and we don't say so clearly, but we leave it unanswered. Now we're going to move on to the din tumah. So this din tumah, this is an unusual tumah, and we're going to list a couple of other tumahs that are similar to this. Usually tumah is something touches a mace or a zav or a mitzayra or a nida, all the different types of tumahs, and that makes something else tameh. This is a Torah dictated tumah. Right? It's not touching anything tameh. It's not a nevela. It's that the Torah said when you take this animal out, the kohen who carries out the animal, or the kohen who burns the animal more specifically, which we understand to even being carrying it, he becomes tameh. Now we're going to talk about this tumah and how it interacts with the regular dinei tumah. Tan Rabbanan, parim upara usira mishtaleach. The parim hanisrafim, which is what we've been talking about, upara, which is talking about the para aduma, which has a similar din, that the para, the Torah says, the one who takes out the para will become tameh. Usira mishtaleach, the soyer hamishtalech, the soyer of Yom Kippur that gets thrown la'azazel. The Torah also says about that there is a tumah on the people who engage in its avodah. So we say hasarfan, the one who burns it. I'm sorry, did we? Yeah. Has mishaleach, so it means the one who, the Torah says, the mishaleach, the sar la'azazel, the one who sends it out, he's going to become tamei, as well as hasarfan, means we said it was Arden, that the Param HaNisrafim V'Hamitzion, and so I mean the Sarfan is both going to apply to the Param HaNisrafim as well as the Paraduma, and Hamitzion, according to the Chacham, not according to Reb Shimon, when you take the Param HaNisrafim outside of the Beis HaMikdash, Mitama Begadim. All these things are Mitama the Begadim of the people. If it's Mitama, the people who are doing the Avodah, and the Begadim also become Tameh, which is an unusual thing. That's a Tumah Chamura. In order to be Mitama Kalim, you need a Tumah Chamura. You need what would be called an Avat Tumah. So this is considered to be equivalent the Tumah that these people get, the people who are doing the Avoid, all these Avoidis, these unique type of Avoidis, that is Xeris Akasa, they become Tameh. The Torah says, and they're only become Tameh under certain circumstances, they're Mitama Begadim, that they have the Tumah Chamura, that they can even, not just Mitama, which is easier to be Mitama Eichlin Umashkin, but they're even Mitama Begadim Bekalim. Behem Atzman Ematam Begadim, but the basar itself, right? This is not that the Torah is telling you that the basar is tamei and therefore it's matama the people who are carrying it. The Torah says only under the exact circumstances does this do all of these different the param and the paraduma and the sarah mishtaleach are they matama, but they nevertheless, even though they're not mitama begadim, they don't have the same tumah chamura of mitama oichlin umashkin. They do have a lesser automatic tumah that applies to these, to the basar, not to the people who are carrying it, but the basar itself, that it automatically gets a tumah that it's matama oichlin umashkin. Divrei Reb Meir. According to Reb Meir, as we're going to see, he learns this out from a drasha of the Bei Rabbi Yishmael, which we're going to see in a minute. V'cham ma'imrim parim metamen oichlin umashkin. What you said is true, Reb Meir. The Gabi, the para aduma and the para manasrafim, that they have an automatic din that the metama oichlin umashkin. But the sarah mishtaleach ain't a metama. But the sarah mishtaleach, even though it has this higher din that it's able to be metama seifel etama tumah chamura on the people who are the kayin who's bringing it out, but the automatic tumah will not apply to it. Shu chai, because that's a live animal. The para aduma and the para manasrafim are both after shchita, so they're ready to be tameh. But a chai is not metama oichlin umashkin. You never find an animal that's alive that has a tumah that can be metama. So therefore, this automatic tumah will not apply to the sarah mishtalech. So Dr. Bishlam l'Rameir kedutan debei bishmal. Rameyu says that it applies under all circumstances, even on the Sar HaMishtalayach. He's going to look like the Debei Bishmal. The Tan Debei Bishmal was the Tan Debei Bishmal. Al Kol Zera Zarua. The Torah says that any plant, the Torah says Ki Yipol Min V'Lasam Al Kol Zera Zarua. When an avail of a sheretz falls on any plant, on anything that's grown, Asher Yizara Taru, it's going to remain tar because it needs to be Hokshal Kabal Tuma. We are familiar with the din that in order for a plant, for a food to become capable of being Makabal Tuma, it needs to have water fall on it. It needs water, it needs to be Hokshal, it needs to be prepared. Maz Royim Shein Saifan Litama Tuma Chamura Utrichen Hefsher. So that tells you anything that is not going to eventually be Metama Tuma Chamura. It needs a hechsher. Af kol she'ein soifel l'tama tuma chamura tzrichen hechsher. So to anything which is not soifel l'tama tuma chamura, which is the things that we just discussed, these things that we just said, the para aduma and the para manisrafim and the sar lazazel, these are all things that they are soifel l'tama tuma chamura because the Torah had said that they're going to be metama the people and the begadim, which is the tuma chamura. So they are excluded from this din that's shrichen hechsher. Yatzon avilus aitar shesaifel itama tumas chamura vein shricha hechsher. That excludes a fourth example of something that has its din a saifa litama tumas chamura, in addition to the ones we've mentioned before, the nivlas oif tar, which really it's not metama by touching it, but like we've said many times before, it's only metama when it's balua bebeis habliya. It's only metama bebeis habliya. It only is metama begadim when you swallow it. So it's again a Torah dictated tumah chamura, that it's also going to be metama begadim, which normally a basar would not be metama begadim. So it also has a din of seifel metama tumah chamura, and therefore ain't shricha hechsher. El so we can understand Reb Meir. We're saying that anything that's seifa litama tuma chamura is excluded from the requirement of needing a hechsher, and therefore that would include everything. It would include even the saras hamishtalech. El Rabbanan islahu l'tan debrei bishmael. If they hold like tan debrei bishmael afinu sar mishtalech, then it would include even sar mishtalech. We less like afilu para minalet. If not, this is the source that we know that there's an automatic tumah that will apply to the basar that says that it's going to be metala benegia to eichlin. He says, no, you misunderstood. When we said hechsher, utrichen hechsher, that we said that those things that are not seifel l'tam tumas chamura do not need a hechsher, but those things that are seifel l'tam tumas chamura do not need a hechsher. It's not referring to the hechsher like water going onto the zera, onto the food, or the hechsher of the sara mishtaleach that it has to be shechted before it can be metama. It's talking about the hechsher of getting that it needs to become tameh from something else, meaning those things that are seifel l'tam tumas chamura, they don't need to touch anything in order for them to become tameh. They have an automatic tumah. But anything else, something that's not seifel l'tam tumas chamura, needs to become tameh from a different source in order to be metama. But it's nothing to do with the requirement of hechsher, and therefore there's no. That's why. Therefore, that wouldn't. But you still need to have a hechsher, even if it's seifel l'tam tumas chamura, and that's why they would exclude the sar hamishtalech. I know this is hard, and I know I'm going quicker than I normally would, but it's the exigencies of the time.
Yeah, I try not to ask questions, to just keep up as much as I can.
You could ask questions because if it will be helpful.
Nah, I don't think so. Yeah. It's a lot of new concepts.
It is. I know the Tuma. It's like Kachim itself is new concepts. So you're trying to keep track of the different karbanos. You know what the param hanasrafim, which is also the same thing as the chatois pnimius, which we've had a number of times, but still you don't know all the details. I still highly recommend reviewing this book. The charts at the end, it will be helpful. But then you layer on top of this the tumas, the tumah chamura, tumah kula. It definitely makes it difficult. Boy, Rebbe Lazar, param musirim hanasrafim. These param musirim hanasrafim. Maushi yitamu oichlin u'maskin b'fnim ki b'chutz. What we're saying, that they have a din that they automatically are metama tuma the basar itself, in addition to the fact that it's metama the ones who are burning or carrying out the basar. They also are metama. The basar itself is metama. Anything it touches, oichlin u'mashkin, it's metama. What's the din? Legabe, it's being metama b'fnim kebechutz. That means before it goes out. We know that the din that the people carrying it's only when they leave the azara. But maybe this automatic din will happen even prior to that, when as soon as you have basar of the param hanasrafim. Do we say yitzia k'mechutz ma'asid? Do we say that if it's not outside, you still haven't even gotten to the point where it's ready to become a seifa tuma l'tama tumas chamura? It still needs to be brought outside to get to that point. He says, for sure, you're not going to be tameh with the automatic tumah of the basar being metama b'nega on oichlin u'mashkin until it at least leaves the azara when it's capable, when you could call it seifai l'tama tumah chamura. Bo aminei Rabbi Bar Shmuel Mirab Chia Barabba. Nivlas Tyler of Meir. Maushi Yatam Bakazayas. What's the din legabe this nivlas oiftar? Normally, for basar to be metama, oichenu mashkin, it needs to be the size of a kabeya. When you have this nivlas oiftar, which we say is also soifer letama tumas chamura, and it also is metama, can it be metama even with the kazayas? According to Rameh, according to the Rabbanon, who say that you need you need a hechsher, that something that's not hochshel kabel toma will not be metama. So certainly, so they hold you need to be really very close to the actual toma. It has to have everything set up the same way it would be in an actual toma. So they say the same thing would be legabe this din that you need a kabeya, a kazayas would not be enough for this tuma of the tumas basa. But according to Rameh, maybe it could be metama because so tomorrow, the mechatalar loyti boilach. And this question of it being metama kazayis, when it's lying on the ground, it's certainly not a question. Because when it's sitting on the ground, then it's certainly not yet, like we said before, it's it's not yet considered soifai l'tamatumas chamur. And when it's in his mouth, that's also not going to be a question, because then certainly it already is treated as soifai. It's very close to the being tame betame tumas nevela. Because then the kazayis will for sure be metama, because it was already at the point where it's going to be treated as avatoma for purposes of being metama, the person who has it in his mouth. He's going to become tummy to metamas to megodma to tuma chamura. At that point, it certainly would be able to, according to Rameh, be metama with the kazayis. Kiti ba'alach d'nakat loy biyada. When he's holding his hand, and on that we're going to have the question: is something that is in between? It's mechusar krev. It still needs to be brought up to his mouth, and that will make it that it's already at the point that it's going to be kamat a avatoma, but it's not all the way. But it's not yet there. So do we treat it like that? That even a kazayis, and that under those circumstances will be metama bas, metama oich. Amalei, the Rashi puts in the words on the next amud. Amalei mechusar krev alav k'mechusar ma'aser damim. He said back to him, no, even if he's holding it in his hand, it's not k'mechusar ma'aser, and the kazayis will be metama. Esvei. Shloisha dvarim nemru benivlas oiftar. There were 13 things that was said legabe a nevela of an oiftar. This is one of them. Meaning, this is the Gemara saying one of these things is going to answer our question, what we just said, the question of Reb Meir, whether a kazayis will be metama. First of all, tricha machshava. First of all, that this din that nivlas oiftar is metama. That is in order for this basar of the nivlas oiftar to be metama oichlin, for the basar to be with negia, because it's saifa litama tuma chamura, it has to be oichel. So therefore, he has to have in mind that he's eating it. If it got stuffed into his mouth and he wasn't cognizant of that, he wasn't making it into an oichel, that would not be enough to make it that it should be metama others. Rashi has a more complicated pshat that I didn't understand, so I'm sticking with this more pashta pshat. In addition, the ein sricha hechsher, and it doesn't need any, even though it wasn't no water. It's a meichel, even though it didn't have any water on it, since it's like we said, it's already in his mouth. Since it's saifai litama tuma chamura. Because if you metama with a nivul saiftar gets the din of its metama tuma chamura, it does not need the hechsher. So this is l'chayra like Rameh. Well, we went away from that. Metama tumas eichlin b'kabeya, and it's metama tumas eichlin. So we're saying it doesn't need hechsher. Matama tumas eichelin b'kabeya, and it's matama tumas eichelin with only with a beya. You need a beya. My lav remehi. So this next section, l'chayra, they're going on the fact we said ve'ein tzricha hechsher. But the problem is, before we went away, we said that according to everyone, you don't need hechsher. Even the Chacham agree you don't need hechsher. They just said the hechsher that they said you need is the hechsher of that it has to be tama other things. So it wasn't relevant to this. So the Shita Mekubetzes and other Mefarshim take out this whole next section. But the Gemara says, "Ma'ila Remehi loy Rabbanhi Baktani Reisha Tzricha Machshav Ve'ein Tzricha Hechsher," which, like we just said, could theoretically mean Remeir. Man Sham Lehesor Remeir, the Reisha Remeir Sefer Nam Remeir. So Midira Hakadisa V'Hakadisa. It's not necessarily the case. Okay, so like I said, I explained this on the basic level, and I said what the problem with it is, which is why they literally take out this whole section, because they're unable to figure out what the Gemara means. Or that's what it seems. That's the reason the Shita takes it out. But in any case, but now we ask the real question. This part they do agree with. But Miktani Seifa Shritasa Milikasa Mitaris. The Brisa continues. It says, if you shecht or you do malika on this bird, depending on whether it's kachim or not. If it's not kachim, then you do shchita. If it's kachim, then you do malika. Mitaris mitrefasa mitumasa. At that point, it's not going to be considered an avela, even though the shchita or malika is not going to make it kosher to eat, but it's going to it's not going to make it kosher to eat, but it will make it that it's not going to come an avela to mitam when it goes into its throat. Who's the man who holds this din that the shchita will take away the din nevela even though it's a tray? For Remeya, this we see in other places. This is the shita Remeya. Back we had this a couple of like a month or two ago, earlier in the Masechta. Reish of a sefer Remeya mitziyasa rabbanan. So then you're going to have the Reish is Remeya, the sefer is Remeya, and the middle part is the rabbanan. So we're in Reish of a sefer Remeya mitziyasa rabbanan. Ein achanami. Don't sit down until you answer to me this question. Generally, the din is that a rishon l'tuma, when something touches a avatuma, it makes what it touches a rishon, and then that rishon, if it touches a second thing, it becomes a sheni. So the question is, does this basar, the kazayas of nivlas oif kosher, does it, when it touches other basar, which we said because it's seifa latama tumas chamura, does it make it a rishon that it could also be metama, another piece of basar, to make it a sheni? Or do we say it's already like a sheni, that according to Remeir, it could even be metama with a kazayas that doesn't make it maybe that it would make the basa that it touches, instead of being treated like it's a rishon that's being metama and making the basa it touches a sheni, maybe it's treated just like the Remeir says that it has a din that a kazayas is metama, which normally basa would not be metama with a kazayas. Maybe this is upgraded also, that it's treated like avatuma, and what it touches in a rishon, that could also be metama. Amalei kalechet metama adam b'maga moinin by rishon v'sheni. Kalechet ein metama adam b'maga ein moinin by rishon v'sheni. And since this basar is only able to be metama a basar, it's not able to be metama an adam. So therefore, it's not going to have the din to be metama as a rishon. And therefore, and then these, like an avatuma that's metama rishon, that it could be metama sheni, but it's going to be treated as if whatever it touches is a sheni, and it can't be metama anything else. A similar question. When you have two half a kazaisin that are attached of basar, that are attached with mashka, that they're sitting in liquid, it's considered a chibur legabi tumakala, legabi that it could be metama to be metama oichlanu mashkin, but they're not considered a chibur to be metama a tuma chamura to be metama adam. So moinim by rishon v'sheni ain't moinim by rishon v'sheni. Again, since we're saying that we're going to upgrade, I'm going to give it a din that it's able to be metama basar. Will it be able to be metama that like an avatuma that's metama? In this case, that it's going to be metama, and what it's metama can be metama another oichlanu mashkin or not. Again, the same thing. We said it's ein chibur tuma chamura. It's not able to be metama adam, and therefore it's not going to be metama in a way that it can be metama a second thing. Let's. This next part is a lot easier. So in the Mishnah we had said that if both the person carrying it from the front and the one carrying it in the back, they all went out together with the param hanisrafim, they become tamei. Where does this come from? That as soon as you go out, according to the Tana Kama, not according to Rav Shimon, that it has a din that it's metama as if you were already burning it. The Tana Rabban Lahalanu Oimer Chutz L'Gimel Machnas. This is a Mishnah in Yuma, a Bryce in Yuma, that it says Lagabi the par Helm Davish Al Tziba and the par Koyin Mashiach. You have to take it out. Michutz L'Gimel Machnas. That's where you burn it. And over here, by Yuma, it says you take it out of one mach. It's coming to tell you that the same din will apply both on the parim of Yom Kippur and with Parkei Mashiach and Param Dover, that once you take it outside of the Azara, once it goes out of one machna, it's going to become the garden. So we said that it says Lagabi Parkei Mashiach and Param Dover that you take it out of three machnas. Where does it say that? The Tana Rabbanan, you take the whole par outside of the machna. It says Lagabi the par koyin gadol. So that means chutz l'gimel machnas. It means out of three machnas. Ata oimer chutz l'gimel machnas. Where do you see it means chutz l'gimel machnas? Aynei machnas. So it's only one machna. Kshu oimer par edem chutz l'machna. When it says by the par helam davish al tzibur mechutz l'machnas, in tzarich l'oimer, why do you have to say it? Shari kvar nema kash sarfes par harishon. It already says it's similar to Parkei Mashiach, which we said has to be chutz l'machna. Litan l'machna shniya. That adds a second machna. Kshu oimer mechutz l'machna badeshen. Then it says that you have to bring the deshen, the chumas hadeshen, onto the makam outside of the machna. What does it have to say that the deshen is brought outside of the machna? It already says that the par koyim Mashiach should be burnt on the makam hadeshen. So we know that the makam hadeshen, which we already said that the par koyim Mashiach has to be chutz l'machna. So we know that the deshen is chutz l'machna. So why did I have to say that? It's going to tell you that it has to be all has to be outside of all three machnas. So the Rav Shimon, this is all according to the Tana Kama in our Mishnah, who holds that just bringing out as metama. According to Rav Shimon, that says that it's only the actual burning. What does he learn out from the chutz l'machna? It says over here, chutz l'machna. It says, what is this? L'gabi the par v'sor of Yom Kippur chutz l'machna. V'nemar lahalon. This is in Yuma, and it says l'gabi the par aduma chutz l'machna. Mal alon chutz l'gimel machna. Just like we learned that the par v'sor of Yom Kippur is chutz l'gimel machnas. Afkan chutz l'gimel machnas. Umal lahalon the mizvach shel Yerushalayim. So that tells you the paraduma has the same din. That has to be not the paraduma. The paraduma has to be also chutz l'gimel machnas. Umal alam mizrach shel Yerushalayim. We have a pasuk that tells you by the paraduma that with mashma it says toward the heichel. He has to do it. Which tells you it has to be on the east side outside of the Machna Afkan, so too the Par Kohen, the Par of Asar of Yom Kippur also have to be Mizrach Yerushalayim. So that's what they do with that pasuk. Ela Rabban and Heichasarf. So according to Rabban who don't have this pasuk for that, because they use it to tell you that you become tamei even for going outside of the Azara. Where do they burn it? They don't have this pasuk to tell you it's on the east. Kedetanya, like in the Brisa, Heichen Nisraf and Litzaf and Yerushalayim. Just like the kachim are all burnt in the tzafin of the mizbeach. So this is also going to have the same din. We learn a general rule. That's going to be also tzafin Yerushalayim. Chutzul shalosh machnas. He says you also have to burn it on the makom where the deshin was. If there was no deshin, then you can't burn it. Amarav, a man tana the palagoleder b'yesei. Who's the tana who doesn't require that it be on a prior base hadeshin? Elizabeth Yaakov, the tanya al shefach hadeshin yisarf sheisham deshin. That it has to be al shefach hadeshin means it has to be on a slope that the deshin is going down from. Shiehei, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. The Tanakama says Yesham Deshin, like we said before. He says it has to be not that it's the Malkum where the Deshin was, but rather that the Malkum Meshupach. So he's the man Amr who's Chaylik. Amalei Abaya, no, the Malkum Meshupach Pligi. Maybe he doesn't disagree that it needs to be Malkum Deshin, but he's saying in addition it also needs Malkum Meshupach. Tan Rabban. The person who burns, according to Reb Shimon, it's only one who's sayrif the param hanisrafim that they're begadim become tamei. Not the one who lights the fire, and not the one even who puts the basar on the maracha. So what is the sayrif? He has to actually, when the basar is burning, he has to cause it. He has to like stoke the fire and arrange it. That's the one who's going to become tamei. Maybe even at the end, after it gets totally turned to ash, if someone assists at that point, he's also become tamei. Tamud laima oisam metamagam mishasav afar a metamagam. Only while it's still the parman sraf, it's still meat there that it's considered that it's metama, but not when it turns into ash. He says it doesn't have to turn into offer as long as the basar lost its status as basar, it's charred, then it's not metama. It doesn't have to be ashed. If it got burnt, it got scorched, but it's not yet turned totally into ash. Okay, shkayach hadron aloch tvul yoim.